Spectrovision Radio.
Hello and welcome to the Modern Fairy Sightings Podcast, where we listen to people's fairy encounters. But take heed, we're not talking about winged Tinkerbells here. These are real fairies, real encounters that took people like you and I by surprise. Stay a while and hear their stories. My name is Jo Hickey Hall, and I'm a folklore researcher. Dear listener, I hope you're well. The energy of the external world appears to be whipping up as I record this introduction in mid-November 2025. Since the beginning of October, I have felt a real need to go inside and retreat. I wonder if you've been feeling that too. The Hermit tarot card had been coming up for me personally, and that really spoke to me. It certainly feels like people are intuitively preparing for something. I've almost felt sometimes lately like we're approaching some kind of precipice. I've mentioned it to others and they've recognised this feeling too. Of course, I don't know what that is, but I believe it's a necessary shift for the planet and for humanity, which will herald a new beginning of some kind. Like many others, I find it interesting that 3I Atlas, the so-called exocomet, has been moving through our galaxy and thought to reach closest to Earth on the 19th of December. I will link a fascinating and informative article by Andrew Collins, which among other things suggests that 3I Atlas could be a sentient being. The fact that it is arriving around the winter solstice, the hinge of the year in the northern hemisphere, at the darkest point of the year when the light returns, and also summer solstice in the southern hemisphere when the light reaches its zenith, feels particularly powerful. And it feels to me that the call to slow down and go inside is as natural as that of animals settling into hibernation. We seem to be feeling it more, feeling our roots again, feeling our humanity again. I hope so. All the while, externally, we approach the end of what has been a harrowing year for the world in its continued journey of transition. Yet there have been undoubtedly viscerally felt glimmers of light by those suffering and witnessing this prolonged sense of hopelessness. More recently, with various wrongdoings coming to light, both historical and current, there's been a sense of the world almost purging toxins held within. All the more reason to take care of yourselves and each other during these times and find your community so that you can feel connected by love and understanding. We need to know that there is somewhere safe to reach out and be met. On a practical level, I'm hoping to finish my book during these darker months. I'm still creating the podcast. That is my full-time job, as well as being the main childcarer in our family. I'm also currently in my third year of training in core process psychotherapy with the Karuna Institute, which I really love. I'm also about to host the Body Mirror System workshop in Bristol, which is now sold out. I'm so looking forward to it. It's such a great time to be working with healing techniques and aiding one another, and it will just be such a resourceful space to be in. The Patreon community welcomed some new members recently, so hello to you all and thank you so much to all my Patreon supporters who ensure the continuation of this podcast. If you are able to support, please do. And if you cannot at this time, if you can rate and review the podcast wherever you listen and, share it with other people, I would be very grateful. If you're going to come and join us on Patreon, please don't join the free members, as that is only placing your data with the Patreon platform, sadly, and it's not our group. Instead, if you join as a paid member of the Curious Crew, you can in fact have a week's free trial just to see if it's something that resonates with you. Later this month, we have a past guest, Greg, from episode 111, joining us at our monthly Zoom to chat about his experiences. And next month, we have our annual Christmas Zoom gathering where all members can meet. Everyone's invited, and we will be sharing spooky stories with one another. Recently, Ember in our group created a pathworking to find and meet your familiar, and that was a really powerful experience for us all. This is recorded and it is on the Patreon platform in our Modern Fairy Sightings podcast group. As well as the amazing stories that we continue to hear and that provide further clarity on these worlds, our community on Patreon is just my favourite aspect of this whole project, and I feel so grateful to be surrounded by such great people, especially in these times when tenderness and friendship is everything. Which, dear listener, brings me to this latest episode. My guest Breanna lives in North Carolina, and I originally spoke with her in December 2024. This was just a few months after the devastating hurricane had hit her community. Breanna had contacted me about her experience of the Hatman, who had been in her sphere of perception from between the ages of 4 and 7 years old, almost every night. The full-length conversation is on Patreon, where we talk more about her community and her family's experiences too. I hope you'll enjoy this fascinating exploration of a being that many people have encountered. He is recognisable as a tall, dark figure wearing a hat, and sometimes a cape or a trench coat, often notably reported to be without any distinguishable facial features. Like the Dark Man, he is often described as blacker than black. He seems to be some form of shadow being. Perhaps you've seen him too. As you will hear, Breanna had been experiencing serious illness as a child during the time that she encountered him, and so was herself perhaps venturing near the edges of life. I do hope you enjoy this episode. Thank you so much for listening. And my wish for you, dear listener, is that you also are able to feel a sense of whatever you need at this time, and that those needs can be lovingly met. Despite the surface divisions that we see, I feel we are increasingly recognising our connections and similarities with each other every day in greater numbers. And even if we cannot see what the future holds, we can trust that it will always unfurl in the way that it should, with love in our hearts. And a good place to be right now is to always remain curious. Time to
So, I'm 26 now, and when I first saw the Hatman, I think that I was either 4, from ages 4 up, until I got out of elementary school. And when I got out of elementary school, I was a little bit younger because I was homeschooled, but during all of my elementary years, from, I would say, 5 to, just be safe, I'll say 5, from 5 to 10-ish, so a good 5 years, I saw the Hatman, or I did not know the name of him for that long. Actually, it was, I would say, probably a few good months before I saw your post on Instagram talking about the Hatman, that I'd seen someone you know, post something about it on Facebook, and they were like, it's a worldwide thing. Have you ever seen anything like this? And I was like, I've seen that. I never had a name for it, but I saw that for so long as a kid, and I was terrified. It just, it was not, it was not necessarily something you see that's scary, scary. I mean, it's just a dark figure, and obviously it has a masculine look. So you think it's a man, and then he's wearing this hat, and he just would stand there and stare, but you couldn't see any facial features, no outfit details. It's just like a figure, or he was like a shadow at night, if that makes sense.
Did it ever have a pattern of when he might appear?
Um, I'm not sure. I think maybe my mom always said that I was not a very good sleeper when I was a kid. So I didn't sleep in my room. I slept with my mom in her bed, um, in my parents' room. So it was every single night that I would sleep in my mom's bed that I would get scared because I could hear him. I don't know if this has ever been heard before, but I could hear footsteps in our hallway, and I would always be terrified to look over to the left. And it was never in any other situation during the night or the day that I would see him.
So you would look presumably towards the door. Does
Hmm.
that, and would he stand at the threshold and not come in that case?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think I mentioned to you in one of our emails, I'm not sure, that the same time, like during the same time that I was experiencing him, I don't know how to describe it. It's like I want to say a force field. I know that sounds funny, but it was like this dome that went over my mom and I's bed, and it was like a colorful TV static that almost like you could see through it. It was like glitter, but he couldn't come in to our room because that little like dome thing was over our bed, and I would see it the entire night, and I would be asleep. Well, not asleep, obviously, but for bedtime. If I would wake up, I could see it. If I would go back to sleep, I could, you know, wake up in the morning, I could see it again. And I never saw it other than in my mom's room while it was bedtime. I never saw it. I still don't see it anymore. And I just think that's so weird because what would keep that figure or quote unquote the Hat Man to not come any further into my room if, other people have seen him like in different places. You know what I mean? I don't know what that would have been.
Do you feel that that was some type of protection
I
bubble?
do, yeah.
Hmm.
I just don't know what it would be called.
Yeah, yeah, 'cause it can just be a level of protection, and that could have come from a number of sources, I suppose. What happened the first time you saw him? Can you remember the first time you saw him?
Yeah, I do actually. It's funny because my mom, I don't know if it was like during like the span of a year or just over time, I don't remember, but she moved her bed around in her room. So we started out, I can describe it. The door to her bedroom was to the left of the room. So she moved her bed out of sight of the door. And that was the first time that I felt off. And by off, I mean like a little bit scared because I was never scared in my own home until then. And my mom's bed was out of view of the door. I was laying on the left side of the bed against the wall because I was little and obviously my mom didn't want me to fall out. So I remember I was having trouble going to sleep and I was like, I hear someone walking. So I automatically thought someone was up. I didn't think much of it. And I saw no lights. Usually you'll see a light come out of the hallway or something. Saw no lights. So I kind of thought, you know, in my kid brain, I was thinking, all these things. And then soon after I forgot about it, um, I hear it again. And then I start feeling, a little bit scared. And I'm like, what is going on? So I realized soon after that none of my parents were up, obviously. No one else is in our house. And I could just hear this constant walking. But me as a kid, I'm thinking, if this is someone in our house, my parents are going to wake up. But they didn't. And it's that I didn't see him like for the first time, but I heard him. And that was really scary because you're hearing adult size, footsteps in your hallway as like a 5-year-old. And your parents, they don't hear it or you're too scared to even mention it to your parents.
Yeah. So you didn't mention it to your mom or your dad?
I did not because my dad, he's not the kind of person that when I was little, he would never like believe in anything sort of like that. And my mom didn't either. And so knowing that, I think I kind of took that and was like, if I mention anything, they're just gonna say, "Oh, you're dreaming. You're a kid, you're dreaming." Um, but when I got older, I realized, I didn't have that dream, for over 5 years, and it was very real. I kind of wanted to try to pull at things, when I got older. I was like, I could have been dreaming, but that's just me trying to make sense of it. When really and truly, I know what I saw because I can still see it in my mind, and it's very scary.
Yeah. How does it feel to think of him now?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's the same as seeing him for the first time, like as a kid, scary, but it's very unsettling to like think back. Like I can picture it bit by bit of what he looked like to me, where he was in different positions of like the hallway. Because he was never in our room, but he would, if I can explain this, we had a hallway that comes straight down to my parents' bedroom. To the left of the hallway was a bathroom, and then a little bit further down was where we kept our washer and dryer. And one of the most frightened experiences that I had with him, I don't know why it would be any different, but he was backed up into a little cubby, like little nook area that we had our washer and dryer. Kind of, I want to say, if you think of like a Western movie, like the cowboys when they're like back is against the, I don't know, a post, and they're kind of got their head down with their hat. That's what he looked like, but obviously didn't have his leg bent. He just looked like he was resting his back on our washing machine or dryer, and he was, just kind of just waiting. I don't know why that was scary for me, as a kid, because I'd seen him before, but that was frightening.
So you were walking down the hallway. Is this at night too?
Yes,
So had you
yes.
got up to use the bathroom or something?
Yeah, actually, my mom told me this is what I mentioned earlier that I was not a good sleeper because if I got bored at night, I wouldn't turn any lights on. I wouldn't, you know, wake up my parents and say, "Hey, I'm getting up," or "I need to go to the bathroom," or whatever. But I would go and sit on our living room couch, and I think I'm autistic. I'm okay with saying that. I think I'm autistic, but um, I rock back and forth. It's like just a stem is what I do.
Mhm.
And I started when I was little, and I've never stopped. And I would go and sit on our couch, and I would rock back and forth until I got sleepy again, and then I would go back to bed. And that was what I was going to do until I saw him, and I was like, "Oh, nope, backing up."
Yeah. Yeah. So you see kind of him, obviously all the lights are out and
hmm
his form there the in the washer room, kind of with his
Yeah,
back against the washing machine.
yeah.
And yeah, what did it kind of invoke in you, the sense within you?
I did. I was just so small, and I don't know, it's just really hard for me as a kid to process something like that. It is as an adult now, but it was very scary. Like, that was true fear for me as a kid. I don't think I experienced true fear until that occurrence. And I don't really know how to like explain how I felt other than just terrified.
Yeah.
Like, I had no one to talk to about it. I know that's awful, but I just knew that they would be brushed off as you're dreaming because you can't make someone believe or, understand what you saw unless they're more open minded.
Yeah, it's interesting that you'd already kind of learned that at a young age that there was no point in mentioning it. Had you had strange dreams when you were younger too?
I haven't, I don't know why I've always been this way, but even as early as, 5 years old, I was always open to things. And like, I remember this very vividly. My grandma, my dad's mom, passed away about 2 or 3 years after I was born, and I don't necessarily remember her much from not meeting her, because I was so young. But I could remember this very, very vividly. I went outside and something told me to look left or right. I don't remember. And it was the empty shell of a turtle.
Oh,
And I don't know why, but I had this feeling that my grandma, was trying to communicate to me with this shell because it's right at the back of our door and no one ever saw that before.
mm,
And I had that feeling, and I've always been open since then to like you know, other things. Like there's more things. I don't know why I've always done that, but
Mm.
I've always been that way. I've never not believed someone when they say, oh, I saw a goblin in the middle of the road. I'd be like, no way,
Mm.
that's so cool. Tell me more. But most people are like, oh, it's your eyes playing tricks on you. And my family's like that. So I think that's why, as a kid, I knew there's no need to tell.
Yeah.
They're gonna joke about it.
Do you remember any of the dreams you had as a child?
I had a lot of vivid dreams. I was a very imaginative child, and I had a lot of wild dreams. Like I don't know how to really, obviously I can't remember all of them, but I would have dreams I would probably say a kid shouldn't have. I'm not sure why. Um, but I dreamed of a lot of protection, as in like I still call it my force field that was around us at night. I would have dreams about that. Like that would be in my dreams around me, but not as in I could see it, but I could see it like from my view or whatever in the dream. I could see it around me no matter where I was. So still don't know what that is or why it went away. But I would dream with that like I have glasses on, so let's say that it was over my glasses, like everywhere I would go, I would see that.
Mm.
And that was just when I was little, and I don't know why it went away.
What kinds of things would happen in the dreams? Do you remember anything about them?
I don't know. I just know that they weren't pleasant dreams.
Okay.
They were, and I don't know if they would be considered scary to an adult, but as a kid, they were weird, and I don't know why. Those kind of dreams that you wake up and you don't feel good after you wake up.
So you were kind of aware of him when you were first in with your mum, and was your dad in the bed at that time too?
Well, we had a full size bed at the time.
Mhm.
So you can imagine three people being in a full size bed that was pretty crowded. So my dad, when I would go to sleep with my mom in our bed, there was an extra room at the end of our house, and he would sleep in there. But it's always when I was with my mom, and I noticed that if I were to sleep in the room and my dad would be in there, it never happened. So I
Mm.
don't know I don't know what the difference would have been.
So the times that you were in the room with your mum and you could see him at the door, what would happen on those occasions?
Me and my mom, we would always, before we went to sleep, we would talk, and we still do that. We talk, the lights will be off, we'll be talking, and it's just like really lively before we go to bed. Whereas if it's me and my dad, we don't do that sort of stuff. And I know that probably doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about, but that's really the only thing different,
Yeah.
like between my mom and my dad. My mom would make things really personal, whereas my dad was like, let's just go to sleep.
Can you remember any other occasions when you saw him when you were in bed as a child with your mum?
Yeah, my mom moved her bed, um, so the door was directly in front, and I can remember trying to think. I think it was around Christmas, maybe Christmas. Um, I know it was winter time, and I want to say Christmas because it was a lot later than usually we go to bed. So I'm thinking it was probably Christmas. And we got into the bed and we hadn't been in there long. And my mom obviously had stopped talking to me and she had went to sleep. So I was laying there and I was, doing what kids do, playing with my hair, trying to go to sleep because I had a hard time going to sleep. And I was looking at, all the glitter from my little force field. And that also helped me to go to sleep. I don't know how, but it did by seeing that. And it was not long after looking at this TV static of a thing with all the rainbow sparkles that I started feeling super scared, like this uneasy feeling. And I thought, at the time, I had no name for him, just knew that not to look down the hall. But eventually I did, unfortunately for me. Um, and he was just, standing there. And I was really, really frightened. And I thought, if I don't move, I'll be okay. So I crawled back into bed. I covered myself up from head to toe. And there's a little bit of moonlight coming through our window at the time. And our room was sort of not as dark as it usually is. So I could see a little bit better. And it was so scary because I could hear him just like walking around. I don't know where, but I know it wasn't in my room. He was either like, he only had places to go, obviously, it was in our bathroom, our hallway. There was obviously my room too down there. And then the living room, the kitchen, and another bedroom. So those are the only places that I could obviously imagine he would be walking. But the footsteps never ever got any quieter or any lower. They all sounded they all sounded nearby, but obviously you can't walk that much in such a short space. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's almost like it was an audio playing because there was no, like, if I'm walking in my room, you can hear a difference than if I'm in the living room walking. And it's just weird.
Are you still living in that house now?
I'm living at the same place, but it's not the same house. So the house that it was in was a single wide trailer back in the 90s. And this one is directly where the old trailer was. And I never had any experiences since that trailer was torn down.
Do you know the history of that trailer?
I actually don't. I don't know if my family put it here or if it was here when they got here or, like if there was previous owner. I'll have to actually ask my dad about that. I never thought about that.
And I'm thinking about your grandmother and this turtle, the empty turtle
Yeah,
shell, and how, your sense of protection was this kind of bubble of like a shell, like a
yeah,
shell, like a protection, and how
yeah. That's true. Wow, that's really neat. I've never thought of it that way.
where do you think you got the idea of the bubble of protection from? Do you think anybody ever
I
taught you
don't
that?
I don't think they did, because even as a kid, I don't remember seeing anything even remotely like it. The only, the closest thing I could think of to describe it in my older age was like a TV static that was spread out into like a shell shape, and the static was more or less rainbow colors, kind of like sparkles. And I'd never ever seen anything like it. And I don't think I have still, like in movies or pictures or anything like that.
Have you told your parents about it now that you're older?
I've, I've mentioned it to my mom. She doesn't not believe me, but I think it's just her nature not to really look much into those sort of things. So she kind of just like brushes it off.
How old were you when you first told her?
Um, Probably last year. So I would have been 25.
What prompted you to tell her?
Uh, Actually, I was talking about your podcast to my mom. She had asked me, what were you doing up so late? And I said I was listening to my favorite podcast, and I was making jewelry because I'm a jeweler. And she said, yeah, I could hear something playing, and I was, going on about how cool your podcast is. I was like, I love it. I love hearing all of these people tell their stories and whatnot. And so from there, I put your podcast on, and my mom and I were listening to it, and she was asking me questions, like she was getting interested in what your guest had to say. And um, I think it was actually on like aliens, maybe. So it wasn't like your usual content. And my mom asked a question. I think she said, "Is it only on like fairies and stuff like that?" And I said, "No." I said, "This episode I think is about like alien sign or UFO and stuff like that." And from there, I kind of like opened up to my mom, and I was like, I saw something when I was younger. And then from there, it turned into a little talk of, you know, what all I'd seen. And she was like, "Well, how do you know that it was real?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know, but I do know how it felt."
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. It's how it leaves you feeling, isn't it?
Yeah,
Have you ever mentioned it to your dad?
I've never ever listened it to my dad.
You're laughing, so I think it's just
Yeah,
there's a sense that he just is
I
just like,
just, I feel like he would, just kind of look at me like, "Are you serious?" After what? I don't know, 20 years, you're not going to tell me something like that until now. And I think that would just make it worse. I think you would just be like, "You're crazy, kid."
yeah. Do you have brothers or sisters?
I have a half sister, but she didn't grow up in the house with me. So really and truly, I was just a single child, only child who I was a kid that loved weirder things than what other kids did. And as an adult, I still do. And I've always felt sort of like the outcast of my age group because of the things that I like. And I don't know if it's the things that I like, my personality, or just that I really enjoy and am open to other things that kids my age around here kind of didn't enjoy that per se as a kid. Um, so I was on my own a lot. And when you're on your own a lot, you think a lot. And I think as a kid, I was I was thinking a lot ahead of my time when it comes to like the paranormal, or is there other things other than humans in the world, Like I was thinking those things, and I was like, as I'm asking my parents, are aliens real? Or I'll hear like a random story and it'll spark some interest, and my parents have to be bugged about it for a while, but I was that kind of kid and I loved it, and I still am as an adult. And I think that's really what was different between me and other kids around here anyway.
I think a lot of people feel like that. I'm hearing you describe how I felt too, that and many other people that I speak to, is that there's this sense of we're kind of viewing the world around us and we feel different to it.
Yeah.
And this kind of sense that there's something more, and we know that there is, and yet we might
Hmm.
reach out to parents or friends and they just don't see it the same way. And so we just kind of, yeah, do our own thing and hopefully
Hmm.
find ways in which to, whether that's books or, I guess these days it's podcasts, um,
Yeah.
ways in which to make sense of our own, feelings towards the world and what it means to us. So, do you remember the last time you saw him?
I would say that I was okay. So actually, I probably know in my mind, I know the exact date. I can't tell you the exact date. I know that it was the end of spring in 2007, I believe. 6 or 7, one of the two. Because I know I know that's when, because our old trailer that we lived in before we got this house was being destroyed so we could get this house. So we had to move from here to my great Aunt Ruby's house. She has an extra like house that is near hers, so we stayed there until this house was built. And I'm pretty sure we stayed off of this land for close to a year, and then we moved back. So when we moved back in this current house, I had no experience whatsoever with him. So I don't know if it was tied to the trailer that we were in for some reason, or, you know, I don't know what it would have been other than that, because that trailer was demolished, all the stuff is gone. There's no remaining, you know, wood or anything
Mhm.
here. It's
Yeah.
just like all new. And that was the last time, the moment that we didn't come back to the first house, that very night was when I, last saw him. And I think actually I can remember when we moved into this newer current house. Um, I remember the first time going to sleep, we didn't have anything in our house at the time, just like our beds and stuff like that, because we were still trying to move in. And I can remember feeling, kind of like I'm missing something, because I was so used to being scared at night and looking out the door to the hallway, and that I kind of felt at peace because I didn't have to do that.
I'm glad to hear that,
Yeah,
that sense of dread and fear had left. So what happened the last time you saw him?
I don't really remember what happened. All I know is that I don't think that I actually saw him for more than a few seconds. That I covered my head up again and I tried to distract myself with, I had a bunch of like stuffed animals that I would sleep with and I would, play with their nose or play with their eyes or pick at their fur or whatever. And I remember the more that I would try to distract myself, the louder his footsteps would get. And louder as in they never went in a different direction by the sound, but it's like to me they were louder and more angry. I don't know really how to explain that, but it's almost like he had a way of, oh, if you're not going to pay attention to me, I'm going to make myself known in different ways. And that was really scary for me as a kid because I could never get the courage to, like tell my parents or ask my parents, who's this person in their house or what is this thing? Or obviously I didn't have anyone to like ask at the time, you know, 5-year-old ask someone, have you ever seen this before? It didn't work that way, but as a kid, back then anyway, it doesn't. But it was very scary, and I actually felt really at ease when I saw someone on Facebook share the post of the Hat Man because I thought all these years of me thinking, I started to think maybe I was dreaming or maybe it was a movie I saw. And as a kid, I was playing it out in my mind and I thought it was real. But when I saw that, I was like, I know now 100% without a doubt in my mind that that was real and that I'm just trying to make sense of it by saying, it was a dream or a movie or something. And I was just really relieved to see that. So I started searching more and saw that it was like not just something that a few people have seen, a lot of people have seen. And that felt good to me to know that I wasn't alone.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I can fully understand that and the kind of relief that must have brought you.
Yeah,
Do you think his message was? Do you think that he had a message, or what do you think he wanted?
I don't know. I mean, you would think, I guess that's just me trying to make sense of it, that if there was a reason for him being there, at least I would think that they would try to talk or do more than scare me as a kid. Because at the time, he didn't do anything to like necessarily show that he was a danger to me rather than just scare me because this figure's not talking or it doesn't seem friendly.
Mhm.
And I don't know if he really had any communication with me or like gave me a sense of why he was there. I think that's just like a great big mystery to me. It was like, why were you here? Why me? Why was I the only one that could see him?
Do you remember the regularity of how often you would see him?
Oh, probably every other night.
Every other night.
Yeah. And
For,
I kind of think that maybe now looking back, that my mom's saying I was not such a good sleeper as a kid. Maybe that's why, because I was frightened.
yeah.
Because I didn't ever, tell my mom. I did tell my mom a lot of things when it come to things that you would think a kid would say. So like, if I was really sick, I wouldn't ever show symptoms or anything until like the next morning, and then I would be, really sick. And my mom was like feeling terrible because she should have taken me to the doctor sooner. But in reality, if I felt something, I wouldn't tell someone right then. I would wait, and then they would be like, "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I don't know why I was like that. I was like that as a kid, and I think I'm still like that as an adult.
Yeah, I don't know why that would be, but it's interesting information for you to know that about yourself.
Yeah, I
So the last time you saw him, what age were you?
think when I moved out of that house, I was probably 7. I think I was 7 years old when I left that house. So that was probably the last time. 7 or going on 8, one of the two.
So a good 2, possibly 3 years.
Yeah.
And he never changed what he did in that time. It would just be the footsteps in the wall and the being at
hmm
the threshold.
Yeah. I mean, he really didn't do anything other than just, he was there. Almost like, scary enough not to have to do anything. If that sort of makes sense, he would just, stand in different places of our hallway, or I would be covered up so I couldn't see anything, and then I would hear footsteps. And it was always those same tactics. It was just in different ways. And
Mm.
it was just never the same. It was always an uneasy feeling and just something that you you don't feel good when you see it.
And is it a trailer or a house now that you're in?
I'm in a double wide trailer.
Yeah.
So it's a bunch bigger than what we had, but I've never had any experience here, and you would think that we're directly on top of where the other one was. You would think there would be no difference, but see, there is.
I guess that's also useful information because I guess what that suggests possibly is that this being was somehow connected to the previous trailer that you were in.
Yeah,
I mean, it could be
yeah, that's
that
true.
sometimes also when a cycle is broken, for instance, moving out and going to your aunt's for a time and then moving back in,
Yeah,
kind of like the cycle is broken. So it could also be about that. It could also be about the fact
it
that
could be.
you grew older in that time, and there is a certain point in our childhood where we then sort of become socialized out of these, or at least in some way lose the capacity to see beyond the veil. When we're young children, we're still very
Yeah,
much kind of used to seeing whatever it is that we see and accepting that to be the norm. So then, you know, moving home when you're little is a really big thing too. It's a big thing at any time of life,
mm-hmm,
but particularly when you're little. So I guess that kind of break um, with how life had been up until that point. And when you were 5, when it began, had anything shifted in your life in any way? Had you had anything, big happen in your life? Had you already been living there since you were little?
mm-hmm. Yeah, I had lived there uh since I was born, but um I think now that I'm really thinking of it, it could have been maybe, I don't know if it would have any connection, but the only thing I can think different is that I have multicystic kidney. So they did not know that until I was 3, 4, around those ages. I was going back and forth to the doctor pretty regularly as a kid, and I had a lot of pain. So that's really the only thing that changed for me as a kid, because I would experience a lot of pain during age like 3 to, I would say, 10. And that would probably be the only difference that I can think of that may have sparked something like that, maybe.
I'm sorry to hear that. That must have been really hard to be so
Yeah, it was. Thank
experienced.
you.
Are things better now for you?
Yeah, yeah,
That's good. So, does it tie in with kind of being the age of 5 and seeing him? Or
yeah,
it
yeah,
does?
it does. That's why I had thought of it is beforehand I never saw him that I can remember in my mom's, like sleeping with my mom in her bed. I can't remember any time before the age of 5 that I saw him anywhere in our house. And then I kind of was like going through a lot of pain, um, probably under more stress than a kid should be in, just because I was scared of the doctors and stuff. So I wonder if maybe that had something to do with me seeing him at nighttime.
Yeah, it would make sense. Did you have to have any operations around that time?
I did actually. They did a test. I don't remember what it was. To try and figure out. I don't know if it was like a biopsy or something at the time, but I know that I was going through a lot of pain afterwards. Um,
When you were ill, was there a risk to your life?
I don't know. Um, I do know that that was like a major thing. Like, well, I don't know really because I was so young. Um, but I would say it would probably be a 50-50 because they weren't sure at first what was going on with me. So they kind of scared my parents. So maybe there was, but I can't say for sure. Um, I do know that there was just a lot of pain. That's really all I can think of is just pain.
Very, very difficult to hear that, to hear of a young child going through pain like that. So I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
Just really am.
thank you. Where my house is now,
Yeah.
directly beside it is my grandparents' home, where they raised all of their children raised children. No one lives in it now. It's used for storage, but I think this trailer that we were in was just something that my dad had moved into when he and my mom had gotten engaged. Um, but I'm not sure if they bought the trailer, if the trailer was here. There's so many stories just from around here locally that I could tell you. It's insane how many experiences and stories that have been shared over the years. That's what I love about it. It's
Yeah.
just people sharing their experiences. And there's so much of it around here. I think I grew up with it, and that's why I love it. Really, really good experience when you're a kid to know that, you know, other people, maybe not your family, but other people have had experiences.
And where would they tend to share them? Would that be some kind of local gatherings or just...
Yeah, just like cookouts or Christmas time or, uh, Easter or just, like a holiday, Thanksgiving maybe. And we'll, like our family who are not blood related, or just, family that are friends that you consider family because you grew up with them, that they all like, it's a small town and we all know everyone, and people grew up, no matter your age, like stories can be told, back in the 90s, and you've got kids growing up now who have heard the stories because people keep telling them. And it's really one of the things that I love about a small town is because people can gather and tell their experiences, like, do you know so and so down the road? And they'll be like, yeah, I know him. And did you hear what he saw last night? And it's really cool
Yeah.
to be in that kind of situation.
Yeah, it's so precious. There's very little of that left, actually, which is why
Yeah,
communities like these are so important, because that is something that we've left. Everyone moves away, families are no longer near each other.
yeah,
People don't have any kind of history relating to where they live anymore. But where this is still happening, it's absolutely precious.
yeah,
I feel kind of almost grief-stricken for the fact that we don't all still have these communities, because I know
yeah,
for my own family, the generation back, that they would have grown up in a similar way in Ireland, with all the community members knowing each other and telling stories and all that kind of thing.
yeah,
Um, and I would love in my life to have that situation again, to be able to recreate that for my kids.
yeah. It's something that people don't get, and they take advantage of it without knowing.
You're right. It is a real treasure to have that in your life. Thanks so much for listening and watching. If you enjoy the podcast, please consider joining us on Patreon for dozens more episodes of unreleased bonus content, monthly online events, and a private chat. We are a warm, supportive community, and it really helps to support the project. Find us on patreon.com/the Modern Fairy Sightings Podcast.